Hi, and welcome to another episode of REDtalks.live, your home of ranting engineers and DevOps. And I have two people on the show this week from Comic Relief. For people not in the UK who maybe haven't heard of it, I'll get them to explain it in a minute. But what's really interesting, especially after having Erica Windish on last week from iPipes to talk about serverless observability, these guys have done an incredible job, especially in serverless awareness of just what they've achieved for their one huge day of the year of raising tens of millions of dollars. So I have with me Adam Clark, a senior engineer from Comic Relief, and Peter Van Heer, the head of technology. Guys, say hello.
Hey guys.
Thanks for coming on. You'll see that the lighting's a little different. It's morning in here in California, so I've got my little lamp going today. You guys are coming from London, right?
Yeah, we're just down in Vauxhall. We've got the House of Parliament just out to our right, but it's kind of in scaffolding at the moment, so there's not much to see.
Nice. And just to clarify, I realized we didn't say who was who. Adam's on the left, Peter's on the right. So, quick for people over here, what is Comic Relief all about?
We are a major charity in the UK that sort of raise money through the power of comedy. So we do a big show every year, which is called Red Nose Day. That's sort of live streamed on the BBC in slots 7 p.m. to like midnight. And we make most of our money on a single event that we then we spend the money throughout the year on various causes that we care about. And
that's prime time. I mean, BBC 7 p.m. And it's big name comedians. I mean, it's anyone's known. This isn't some tier 2 kind of event. It's a thing people talk about for many months to come. Like, I don't want to undersell this. I lived in England for 10 years and everybody knows about the amazing thing that these guys do, the Comic Relief does to raise money. And how much did you guys raise this time around?
I think it's around 65 million so far. It's always kind of bumping up as we've got paying in money coming in at the moment. But I think so far in our history, it's about 1.2 billion pounds. So wow. Yeah, it's big numbers.
Okay, and that on the day, the 62, I think it was, that's about $80 million, I think, just for the context. So that's a lot of money. So as this is a technical show, now everyone understands the gravity of Comic Relief. Clearly, you guys just buy tons and tons of infrastructure that sits there for 364, 5 on the leap year, days of the year doing nothing, right? That's how you successfully run this kind of operation?
That was pretty much what we did in the past years, not what we did this year. But usually, yeah, we would sort of bring in a third party, actually build out big infrastructure, first on premise, later must move to the cloud a couple of years ago, have it, stay there left idle for a couple of weeks, it's sort of massive scaled up capacity, and then we tear it down a week or two after the show. That's sort of the model we came from. Absolutely.
Wow, so you guys are also just data center architecture experts. If you're building up infrastructure every time that you ran this show to scale at that level and then tore it down, that's kind of cool.
So I was thinking it started off is they'd have, previously they'd have 3 months before you'd have these big vendors coming in wheeling servers into Comic Relief. And thankfully we moved away from that a couple of years back and we moved towards containerization. But yeah, now in the serverless world, it's a nice place to be, really.
So you did do a stint in containerization. Today was meant to be more about serverless, but I'm intrigued. Was that just didn't quite meet what you needed? Was serverless a little closer to your expectations?
So really for us, the containerization was kind of handled by an external contractor. So they were running on Pivotal.io and GCP on a kind of a multi-cloud approach, but it was a lot of the backings that was hand built and it was hand rolled, and it felt like from where we'd gone with serverless already. It felt like serverless was easy for us to kind of attain and get the same kind of level of redundancy. So, yeah.
Interesting. And I think, well, most people I think really understand what kind of serverless is all about. It's the fact that your visibility of it is abstracted right up to the functions that you're delivering, the code that you're writing, the functionality that you require. And all of that management of infrastructure and everything underneath is somebody else's problem because you're running on a serverless platform. But to give us some our listeners some context of what you're up against, what kind of traffic do you suddenly get hit with on that day? Like, what's the ramp up like?
It's about probably 1,000 times the level of all year round traffic we see on the nights.
So up by 1,000. I mean, some people would call that a DDoS attack. 1,000
right? Right, Night of TV internally here in tech team, we were facing an actual DDoS attack. We've got to deal with it. Make sure we get all the money. That's
a really good way of putting it. Yeah. So you have a DDoS attack that you generated that you must sustain for the period of the event, because that's what it's all about. It's about raising as much money as possible.
No second chances.
No whatsoever. So I think like our top line, the very top line of kind of what we will take is about 300 donations per second, and the requests per second is way over that. So yeah, it's pretty stressful.
Okay, because I broke up a little bit there. Can you just run those numbers past just one more time about?
So in terms of donations per second, the top line of what we'll take is about 300 donations per second.
Donations per second. That was a new metric for me. DPS.
To be honest with you.
But your transactions a second are, what was the second number?
So transactions per second, I can't give you an exact figure, to be honest with you. But that is, I don't know what requests per second is. Transactions per second is pretty much DPS because that is a donation.
Yeah. So. Cool. So I guess a key thing, given that you have this one event of 1,000-time increase, is how do you have the confidence to make sure it's all going to stand up at this event? I mean, you can't have that be your bad day, but it's not like you have months and months to, blue-green test and connect. Like, how did you get to a point where you were like, okay, we can see enough that's going on, we can troubleshoot things that might happen, like, while we're running the event? Like, what were the steps that you went through to go, you know what, we're comfortable getting away from infrastructure and servers and taking on serverless as a means to deliver?
I think when we started building this serverless donate platform back in sort of early 2018, I think one of the main things for us was that we wanted to launch it in production way ahead before the actual event in March. So I think it went live around September last year. And that gave us sort of a confidence with sort of trickling traffic coming in around, we were able to operate this platform at sort of lower, volumes of traffic. And build our tooling around it, build things like observability into it so we could actually see exactly what was going on at any given time. And as we sort of gained confidence of running it in production, we started doing things like game days and chaos engineering experiments and load testing and things like that. And sort of we ramped up the frequency of those things sort of in January, February time, in which we sort of involved third parties to join our game days, our load testing as well, have worked with AWS quite closely. So we've done a series of well-architected reviews with them to give us the confidence that we're building this in the best way possible. Then we've had sort of external parties do penetration testing on our platforms to make sure, we don't, spill any secrets through our server functions or something like that. And that's sort of, we gradually built up the confidence up to sort of like end of February time, sort of 2 weeks before the event, when you said, okay, we're ready to go with this. Always, and maybe we shouldn't talk about this, but we always had a backup. We always had a backup plan in the side of our pockets, then we could sort of roll out and say, okay, guys, we can't do it, we need to go with our backup. And that would have been hugely stressful because, scalability would have been an issue with that backup plan as well. But, it's about building that confidence and going on that journey, with your engineers, with your product manager, with your internal stakeholders, and with your third parties. So we work very closely with our payment suppliers who actually take the money for us. We integrate with them. So we work with Stripe and WorldPay and PayPal. And we had very good Braintree as well.
Yeah.
Building that confidence, going on a journey with them as well. in this new serverless world, right? Which nobody had really heard about.
And I think that's the thing, like, with, as far as payment service providers, we integrate 5 payment service providers, so we get, a lot of risk reduction kind of across those, and we're very actively kind of load balancing them and looking at conversions. So, we're reducing risk massively, and I think serverless really allows us to kind of push towards, multi-region becomes super simple. And so a lot of that, it doesn't become so like scary, I guess.
So I guess your part of it, your code, your serverless, your functions as a service starts to become an easy part, because scale doesn't have this lag of spitting up an instance, a VM or something. Like, when it's needed, it's there. That's one of the greatest things about serverless. But as you just said, Peter, which was really interesting, you're reliant on external services. You've got payment processors and payment providers out there. Was there concern that maybe this shiny new infrastructure that took all of the lag and therefore buffer out of the communication with them could have actually just overloaded them and created a new problem down the road? I mean, is that a real concern with serverless, that you're just kicking a latency thing further down the path?
Absolutely. That's probably the thing that people don't realize. They go down the serverless route, is that actually your bottleneck in terms of performance and scalability is not serverless itself, but it's whatever third-party providers, platforms you integrate with. And it's kind of funny, because people talk so much about the cold start problem in the serverless world, and actually we never had this issue in production. It was never like, of course we tested it, and IOPipe gave us some insight into that, but actually the main limitation was our payment providers that couldn't deal with more than 20, 30 donations a second. So we had to build in redundancy with our payment providers and sort of load balance across them in a smart way, so we could distribute the traffic over those different providers.
And I think in previous years we have definitely seen payment service providers who are very big names fail at very low levels. Absolutely. Where you'd expect them definitely not to be failing. So,
and you learn this on the day, on the night, and we needed a mechanism in place to be able to swap them out in sort of sub 5 seconds or something. Luckily, it didn't happen. We didn't have any issue on the night, but we were ready to sort of swap out load balance across the.
But not just payment providers as well. But even IOPipe, we've got toggles to turn them off.
Oh yeah, we don't trust anyone.
Before we get onto the tooling, I'm just curious, what from a culture aspect is game day like for you guys? I mean, did you sacrifice a bucket of KFC? Do you have a mascot running around the office bringing good luck, or have you just tested and done so much that actually it's just another day in the office, but you have to go home a lot later than normal?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not another day in the office. Like, I think, coming to 5 o'clock, me and Peter were looking stressed, to be honest with you. But, yeah.
The game days. So, I mean, the game days is interesting. It's a cultural exercise almost, right? Mm-hmm. It's not so much about, the technical ability of you to operate your platform, but more about how all the different people operating parts of the platform work together. So, to give an idea, we had set up a room in the office that sort of mimicked our Night of TV war room, as we call it. And we had all the different teams that take care of different parts of the stack part in that room. So we had maybe, 15 people, mm-hmm. Not just doing the Donate platform, but also other critical parts of, the tech stack that we have on the night. So we have more than just taking the money that we need to make sure is healthy. And then it's just you run through different scenarios. Sometimes unexpected ones. I would sort of sneak in some errors in some of our applications and see how the other engineers deal with those things. Or we would really test out each other a bit, and of course end up opening a can of craft beer.
And I think it's the lines of communication, isn't it? That's the hardest thing. When something's going wrong, it's how everyone's communicating. It's not like the technical side of it. You're kind of strapped in on the night of TV. Like, there's not much technically you can change. When there's millions of pounds happening over a couple of minutes, it's not like you're going to be able to affect an immediate change which is going to fix that.
No.
So. Yeah, so what is in your control? Are there just certain thresholds that you might be able to tweak when things happen? Like, it must be pretty limiting for you.
Yeah. This is your
Yeah, absolutely. So it's tweaking, how much we're sending to, how many payments we're sending to an individual payment service provider. It's turning on or off dependencies. But realistically, if a region switch happens, that's going to be automatic. Like I'm not going to help. I might as well be at home at that point.
Yeah, that's a good one. So let's now move on to the tooling, like what you put in place to make sure that you had some confidence on the day, so that, like you said, Peter, you can enjoy a craft beer instead of being a nervous wreck and rocking in the corner uncontrollably. So what did you have there to show you what was going on? Because I've had a lot of comments about numerous serverless platforms where there is a little bit of, they kind of oversell you on it just works. And you're meant to just kind of believe that. But then, like you said, you're dependent on third-party services like payment processors, so you can't take the it just works. You need to see exactly where things are stalling or potential bottlenecks are. So what did you put in place? I mean, we've mentioned IOPipe a couple of times. Great company. We had Erica Windish on the last episode 50. What else?
I guess the main external tooling that we use is Sentry and IOPipe. Sentry kind of raising errors and giving us kind of an idea of where we need to kind of dig into when errors are happening and how we prioritize those issues. And really the same from IOPipe. As far as internal, we use Grafana quite a lot. And we've got several dashboards. So we work on a Delta model for everything being raised. So we're really kind of looking at deltas coming in, making sure they flow through the system properly, making sure the S3 buckets that we're using are filling properly, that those are filling through to SQS, that they're going through to our data warehousing. Yeah, really a lot of Grafana.
Yeah, so actually one of the things we tested quite heavily on the game day is to make sure that every engineer was looking at the right set of stats. For the application they were monitoring or the part of the application they were monitoring, and Grafana was sort of that's your interface to the health of everything else. Then we had in the back we had IOPipe, we had like Sentry, but equally for some of our things we use Fastly or for Varnish things in front of the website, and lots of different services that all come together through Grafana and give us sort of a bird's eye overview of what's going on.
So that's really interesting here. I'm a big fan of Grafana. In my previous job, at F5 Networks, I did a lot of work with Grafana dashboards to make some sense of the many millions of knobs and buttons in that product. When you used it, were you successful in bringing all those different perspectives into single, like, unified views? I mean, it probably wasn't possible to get everything into one view, but I think a lot of people, what goes wrong with their approach on visibility is they look at very basic metrics like just transactions a second and throughput megabits a second for that product, and then the same for that product, and maybe some CPU and RAM of that technology over there. But there's no correlation, there's no relationship showing. You don't really understand what's going on. And I think people start out on these visualization tools and they don't understand why they didn't see a problem coming. They see when the problem happens a few spikes, but it's not an explanation. Did you? It sounds like you delved a lot deeper than that kind of just surface level metrics.
I mean, it's a hard one because I think it takes practice, to know what you need to look at, and we practice this a lot with the team to make sure they're looking at the right things. And then every team has their own sort of, someone would look at messages going into SQS, and some other team would be looking at requests into S3 or even Google Analytics and things like that, and correlate them back to messages in SQS. Or I don't know. It's very hard to have one solution to this problem because it's a very hard problem. And I mean, to tie it back to IOPipe gave us that level of sort of fine-grained, in-depth, real-time analysis around function invocations. We would know immediately when our functions were hit, how many times, how long they take, if they take longer than we expect them to take, especially when it concerns the functions that interface with our payment providers. Because if they would start taking sort of over 2 seconds, then we know our payment provider would have a problem down the road, something we would Otherwise, maybe only, I don't know, it's hard to measure this, right? So with IOPipe, we had sort of that direct.
Absolutely, and I think that was the cool thing, is being able to see the error happen in Sentry, grab the IP, chuck that into IOPipe, see every invocation, every function that person's triggered along the journey, see the ones with the errors, dig into CloudWatch if you need to from that error. It's just really cool to suddenly, just be able to see logging like in a nice way. I don't know,
logging has been we went to so many iterations of proper logging to end up with the stack we have, and I think the Sentry, IOPipe, Combis, CloudWatch as well. Is brilliant. Gives us.
That's really cool to hear, and I like that the industry kind of spat out this new term, observability, because we can't just keep looking at logs because they're after the fact, and the correlation between different systems logs is very manual. And I mean, there's no way you would have been as responsive as you just said there, Adam, where you could literally pull out. And interestingly, I understood that when you said IP there, an IP address is something that the client has, because you're in a serverless world where you're not tracing things based on IP addresses. Did I pick up that right there?
So yeah, generally actually we can use an IP address to track them all the way through the journey. So that will get tracked in Sentry, and then we have a custom metric where we've got their IP address in IOPipe, and so we can track them all the way through.
And then everything that happens behind that session when it comes in, though, because obviously once you're communicating directly with functions, it's not like you have a TCP network that you're doing TCP dumps on. That's where IOPipe's kind of traceability comes into play, right? So that you can map that behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing for a lot of people, is that kind of, it's not the old TCP network where you can just tap a port when you're working with serverless.
Yeah, well, I think I think that's the thing for us is you end up having thousands of functions, and your logs just end up getting so distributed that you really need something to kind of tailor those in and kind of pen them in, and a quick way to be able to kind of search them really through them.
Yeah, totally. In fact, 2 episodes ago, we did have someone on talking about a solution they're developing, a startup for looking at deriving intelligence from masses of logging data for serverless. That was episode 49. Maybe take a look at that one. So that was really cool. I mean, I think we're probably running out of time. We try not to drag these on too long. I could talk to you guys all day about kind of what you've done in your architecture. Maybe if there's enough interest, we have a follow-up and talk a little deeper about how it all plugs in together. But I mean, any tips for our listeners? Any big takeaways you might be able to suggest of how to make the journey to a serverless architecture like yours? I liked your input already on culture, Peter. That was really useful.
Yeah. So I mean, start small. I mean, don't try to sort of change your most business critical parts and swap it out with a serverless application. But start with something small. I mean, that's exactly what we've done. So we started with like a contact service, or a fundraiser gallery in which people upload pictures of funny pictures with a red nose or something, and start like this small, and then build confidence internally with your engineers and your product folk to sort of use serverless in production. And once you're there, then move on to the bigger parts of your stack.
Nice. Adam, anything from you? Any advice for our audience?
Yeah, I think it's exactly the same. It's really the smallest thing. Like for us, being able to pull out mailer functionality, say out of all of our applications, and put that into a serverless function, it's just it feels like the right approach to me now. And you don't eat an elephant just by going and jumping onto it and trying to take a bite. You can try and cut it up slowly and go at it. But observability as well. Like observability is probably one of the most important parts, because you need to know what's going on. I'm not 100% sure that CloudWatch on its own is really enough to kind of trust what's going on in the background. And I think that's something we found out by running it in production.
Interesting. Okay, no, that's great advice. Now, how can you've written some great articles already? I think you actually wrote a piece on IOPipe's blog platform, in addition to your own. How can people learn more about what you've done? I'd love to put a list together actually when I post this for people to go and hear more about you guys and your awesome achievements.
So we've got a Medium blog for Comic Relief, which is just I think it's at Comic Relief on Medium. I don't know the link off by heart, to be honest with you, but that's probably one of the central sources of where we're kind of putting product updates, technical updates. Peter's just written an awesome article that he's going to publish soon on kind of using machine learning or doing machine learning in Lambda. And so, yeah, I guess that's probably the best place.
Cool, awesome. I will point people at that location, and hopefully they'll get as much out of it as I did. Thank you both for coming on. I mean, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. It looks like I'm seeing a little sunshine coming in there. That's pretty cool. I remember England differently from that my 10 years there.
Yeah, it's pretty nice now. I can turn you around quickly. It's a nice day outside. So
fabulous. English summer right there. Okay, thanks very much, guys. You've been listening to Adam Clark and Peter Van Heem from Comic Relief, part of a team that spins up infrastructure for one huge day of the year where they're pulling in over $80 million US for charity. So a really worthy cause, and just very cool how you guys have adopted serverless to scale that, but done so in a really cool way with the right observability tools to make sure that you had that peace of mind on that one big day of the year. So thanks for coming on and sharing your story, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks both. You've been listening to Nathan Pierce on REDtalks.live, your home of ranting, engineers, and DevOps. Thanks for listening.